and the authority to have a say on how decisions are made. We have recognized as a party that the people are yet to give us the authority to decide. That is why this party does not hold the office of president and does not have a majority in the National Assembly. But with the few people we have the authority to have a say. And no one doubts that Toy is exercising that authority to its fullest extent, so that your concerns are known to the powers that be, and how they are to be addressed are known to the powers that be. We are now moving to the third phase of our electoral cycle. It's a key phase. It is important for the Gambian people to be fully prepared for that phase. The Central Committee of the party has charged its Secretary General to be holding these periodic press conferences in order to convey what it has to the Gambian. We are opening up a national conversation, and this conversation will continue unabated until every single Gambian is conscious that what is sovereign and what is an embodiment of sovereign authority and power. That power to be the supreme lawmaker of the land by virtue of the authority to approve the constitution of the land. That power to determine who becomes the executive and those who are to be in the National Assembly, to carry out the responsibility of providing services to our people and making laws on behalf of our people. There is a macro perspective of the state, and they call it central government. There is also a micro perspective of the state, and they call it local government authorities. There is also a micro. The country is supposed to be divided into local government areas, and under the Local Government Act, they comprise 3 areas. Number 1, regions. Number 2, cities. Number 3, municipalities. And the regions have area council. Cities and municipalities will have mayors and councillors. And you are empowered by the Local Government Act to elect the councillors, the mayors, the chairpersons. Under the Act, councils should exist for 4 years. But it was included in the Act that local government elections should not be held except under circumstances where it will be 1 year after National Assembly elections. Consequently, the councils have not ordinarily stayed only for 4 years. But the councils under the Local Government Act had the authority to stay up to a time when it is 3 months before an election. Then they will start to dissolve, And the president then had authority to appoint management committee to preside over the councils until the first sitting of the next following council. That has been abrogated by the Supreme Court. That we should have councils that are autonomous and that are democratically elected. That is now established. But then, what happens to the councils? When you separate mayoral election, chairperson election with the other council election, the councils will continue to exist. The law is yet to be fully clear as to its dissolution after the Supreme Court decision. And we are holding these two elections at different times. It is the governors who should indicate the first meeting of the council after elections, and the chief executive officer for the municipalities and the city council. So essentially, after the council elections, the mayoral chairperson election will take place in May. What do you do during that interim? And this is why it is important for a state to be led in a manner that has clarity. Because when you talk about the rule of law, the law should lead. But the law should be clear. And it should be vocal. It should be prescribed. It should be codified. So there is definitely need for local government reform. And you should cast your mind 2016, when the change occurred. The purpose of the change was to have a transition where within 3 years we'll engage the population, engage the administration, engage all elements in our society to be able to look at our constitution, our laws, our institutions, our administrative and managerial practices to make them fit for a new republic, a republic where the conscious government people will be fully in charge. Now we are engaged in half-hearted measure that we call reform, and the courts are intervening to guide the process so that laws and constitution will be consonant with each other and will speak the same language. So as we move to this local government election, it is important for the Gambian people to know that finally they are the ones who have the authority to decide who manages their affairs. What we call local government, the microstate, is not an ordinary state. It is bringing the state to the level of the people, to make it community-based, to work to complement the national base of the state, the macro level. DOI is guided by clarity. We are conscious of the fact that the purpose of creating the micro level of the state, the community-based aspect of the state, is to ensure that the laws of balanced and proportionate development of society is adhered to. Unless you adhere to such a law, there will be imbalance between rural and urban. Imbalance in our communities, and therefore drifts to certain communities are likely to happen. Yet, you will not be able to address the problem of poverty. So the purpose of creating local structures is to ensure that the local structures will guide the process of development to prevent an imbalance, disproportionate development. That is the purpose. An attempt is made in the Local Government Act, as well as its Financial Audit Act, to try to create a sort of a balance. Fundamentally, it states very clearly that 60% of what is collected by the council should be used on development. But then that is not enough. Most states, most councils will be unequal in their earnings. So therefore, in the law, it says that there should be 4 areas of intervention of the macro level. Number 1, it can't give what is called equalization grant. It must examine the councils and look at their earning capacities and provide grant to create some element of a balance. Number 2, if it sees that it can give the council certain responsibilities to run what used to be operated by the central government, it can go up to 10% that it gives them for the operation of those institutions. It can go further to engage in granting aid where it works with the council on certain projects and provide funds for those projects to be implemented in a particular council here. But under Section 128 of the Local Government Act, it talks about providing the funds that may be necessary, 25% to supplement the development budgets of the councils. So unless the councils sit down and examine their budget and allocate their 60%, quantify it properly, and submit that prior to the budgeting of the government, it means that it will not be able to get the 25% that it needs, because the 25% would have to be allocated by the National Assembly. So essentially we are talking about councils becoming very efficient in understanding the law and how to implement the law. So all councils should therefore have some form of legal aid where there is specialization on the act and how they can derive maximum benefit from the act. Because the councils will have sources of funding. They are likely to have possibilities of royalties. How do you calculate them? How do you follow them? They are likely to have investments. Where do you invest? How do you generate resources for the councils? So there are many possibilities for the councils to be able to generate resources. And what are those resources meant for? We have realized from the very inception of this party, under the First Republic, that the policies on councils were misplaced. Because the objective of ensuring that the people take part in development was not fully comprehended. What is the proof? When the local government reform program was initiated, giving rise to the Local Government Act, you will see there the creation of village development committees everywhere, ward development committees everywhere. But you have these village development committees, ward development committees, but they do not have budgets to be able to bring about development. So you have a village, it has a village development committee. How will it bring about development without the financial, material, and human resources necessary for development? There can be no development in any institution without financial, without material, and without human resources. All these developmental units they have set up lack all these three basic ingredients. So that is why we are saying that they articulated the process, but they did not know its object, and therefore could not give it what it requires to bring about the development that was necessary at the local level. That is why they failed. You create these units, you deprive the unit of resources. How can you succeed? Since the macro aspect of the state is designed to operate like a state, the local government authorities have the authority to make laws, bylaws, and also to raise revenue, just like the macro level. They are very powerful units. But from the beginning, they were deprived of that power, and that deprivation continued to increase rather than decrease. If the councils at that level were to bring about any development, and they were supposed to be the architects of community development, and you can even see the local government attempts to link them to community development experts. So that the community development unit that was established were in the First Republic and given areas of specialization could have been the tool that would provide the human resources necessary to aid the councils in their developmental objectives. But from the very inception of the council, they lost their bearing. What should have been the bearing? If you are to manage the affairs of a unit, you must know the resources available. And each council should have done cadastral mapping to understand the topography that it was taking charge of. The number of schools and where they are located, hospital where they are available. If nothing is available, nothing is available. What is available would be known. You look at the environment to see where your space is, land space. Places where you have water. This is where during the rain, water will empty itself. So there was need to study the environment so that the wetlands will be properly identified in order to identify your natural resources, where farming can take place, where aquaculture can take place, where productive work can take place. You need to identify all of this. And you look at the population who are engaged in all these activities and see how you link them to those various activities. And then when it comes to drainage, you'll be able to know how the water is likely to empty itself into a wetland of what sort or not. But our experience here is that no cadastral mapping took place. Every place was utilized helter-skelter. Consequently, they saw development emerging that was unplanned. Without proper sewerage facilities, proper drainage facilities, road facilities, where you should have urinals to take care of those who are outside, markets, industrial areas, agricultural areas. Nothing was demarcated properly. And those ones that were identified were abused. So consequently, by the end of the First Republic, you can hardly go into municipalities and cities and find a space where you can bring about other forms of development. You will not have sidewalks because the roads are very much congested. You can have proper drainage, the same. Places where there should have been possibility of drainage had already been taken over by residential areas. So everything was plugged. The land gone. And that is why you go to municipalities like KM, you will not find sporting grounds for children in many of these areas. Because nothing was planned. They go into school buildings to have their recreation and disturb the classes, and then they will complain. They will bring in the police, mix the police with the community. Is that going to bring about any form of development? No. Because the mistake has been made and nothing is done to remedy it. It's the same thing with housing. There is congestion everywhere in the urban areas. And when heads of family die because of the smallness of the compound, they sell it and move to other areas. It is transformed into commercial centers. So you evict people and you are encouraging commerce. But who will buy it? Who will buy the goods? It should be the people. So essentially, this is the developmental trajectory that the country entered into in the First Republic, went into the Second Republic, no change. And you hear people try to make comparison. Second Republic compared to what is happening now, or compared to it's like this, First Republic is like this. But then what is strange is that you come to certain communities in the regions and the municipalities, you walk the pathway, and what do you see? Potholes everywhere, pools of water everywhere, no development. And you are still comparing which one is better. First Republic is better than the second, second is better than the first, half-third Republic is better than the Second Republic. Where is the better? You are walking on the same roads, having the same drainage problems, lacking all the facilities, sporting facilities, sidewalks, anything that we call civilization. And you are still trapped into what is better, rather than shaping a destiny, a future fit for us to live in. That is the trajectory that you must conceptualize right now and start the process of unrolling it. Even if you can address it now, start unrolling it. And you unroll it based on the people you elect. You may give them the power to decide, and they have authority to implement their policies. But what we can say to the Gambian population, we have never been given the authority to decide. Then don't ask us about development. Don't tell us that others before they come to power, they'll show you what they can do. By building boreholes there, based on the charity that they receive from someone. putting something there which they receive maybe from a state fund. Don't tell us that that is an example of what will take the poverty that is crushing our people from their heads. We will emphasize to you that those who continue to claim that the reason why DOI has not been entrusted with responsibility is because DOI has refused to change its politics, and the politics it should change is that it should adopt the politics of patronage. Because we have not seen what patronage has done to eradicate the poverty of the people. And in this small room where you, the media houses, are, challenge me by showing me a single politician who daily take $100 to give it to 100 people consistently for a month. $100 to 100 people for a day, for a month. We're talking about $300,000. Where is the politician who sits in his home and gives you $300,000 every day and distribute it among 100 people? We're not talking about 1,000 people. We're not talking about 10,000, 100,000. We're not talking about a million people. We're just saying 100 people. Where are they? And for a year, 3.6 million. Where is the politician? Who is being bribed? So these are what we call misconceptions that those who want to put the people to sleep continue to put in their heads. And unless those misconceptions are dismissed, we'll continue to wallow in ignorance. And ignorance will lead us to be chattels from the cradle to the grave. Live and die in poverty from the cradle to the grave. So we call this press conference for people to understand that DOI is engaged in a journey towards what we want Gambia to be tomorrow. A country where our people are suffering, where the wealth that they own will come back to them and free them from poverty. Where the people they elect will make laws to free them from injustice. Where we must ensure that education comes back to the people to end the ignorance that had been put as a weapon in our country from First Republic till now. That must come to an end. And we believe that if we start the process of giving us the power to have a say, you don't have the power to decide, but you can give the power to have a say by putting the DOI councillors in office. We'll guide them. We now have more time to guide them. You hear that Khalifa is leaving politics. Yes, let's see when the Congress comes, until they say he is no longer Secretary General, you will see whether he will be leaving politics. We'll have more time to educate. More time to educate so that we become the architects of our own destiny. That's how we started the process. Know yourself, know your country, know the world. Then you'll be the architects of your own destiny. Know yourself, know your country, know the world. You'll not be a chattel to any human being on the face of the earth. That is the dignity that Dr. Jai talks about, the self-esteem that we talk about. Coming out, nurturing sovereign citizens, read them, to own yourself. To conclude, when you elect people to control councils, you are giving them the power to decide. If you don't see what you want, ask them. They are responsible. If you elect people without giving them the power to decide, you've given them the power to have a say. Ask them what they have been saying on your behalf. Then you decide. What we can assure you is that the Doi community is growing. The clarity of our people is increasing. Their commitment is increasing. We do not measure the future by looking at the past. We learn from the past to build the future. We can assure you that Doi rejuvenated is on the way. And in fact, after this council elections, it will have greater power to guide a nation that needs to take charge of its destiny. Thank you.